Recently, I posted a short little lecture on the authenticity of Taijiquan as a martial art. And I confess I found it a little bit awkward to do. And it set me to thinking about exactly why this is so and why this is connected to a lot of difficulties with Taijiquan for the student and for the whole art, in a way, to progress. Taijiquan has always been referred to as being invisible. It's kind of, I suppose you could attach several different meanings to this, and probably people have. But I think the meaning of the word invisible is that it is extremely hard to recognize when it is used. And this kind of invisibility means it lacks what I call a martial signature that most martial arts have. Most martial arts have kind of, you might say, two kinds of signatures. One is a kind of somatic signature that is sort of the way they carry themselves, the way they're sort of like somatic consciousness of themselves. And the other is a behavioral signature, which is usually framed as how they defeat people. Judo people throw people on the ground, Aikido people throw them horizontally. This is like what you associate with this particular martial art. These two things. And in fact, these two things, in terms of Taijiquan, are quite invisible. Now, you might say, well, look, and I mean in terms of when it's actually used, when you're actually fighting. And you might say, well, look, if I see you fight somebody a couple of times and you seem to be doing the same thing every time, even if I can't articulate it or I can't really do it, copy it, I can recognize it. I can say, oh, that's what Taijiquan is. And then when I see it again, I can say, that's Taijiquan. Now that makes sense, right? Well, actually, no, that's wrong. In fact, the more that might be true, the worse your Taiji is. This sounds like a kind of peculiar statement, I'm sure. But the point is, most martial arts, as I say, are recognized through their signature attitudes or behaviors, something like this. And Taijiquan actually operates on such a deeply fundamental level that you might say it operates below the level of style. And that the lessons that it teaches are, in a sense, applicable to any style in any type of boxing. This is because, and so why is it unrecognizable? Why when you see somebody, who does Taiji do something? It's not because you don't see him doing anything, or even you might recognize it when you see it again, but it's because it is indistinguishable from natural talent. Now, by this what I mean is, Taiji is actually the only, I started to say the most effective, but it's actually the only actual method, I think, in the martial arts for developing footwork and timing. And I mean real footwork and timing, not just weird ways you move your feet and how to be tricky and, stuff like that when you're with opponents. I mean real footwork and timing in the sense that it is indistinguishable from the most natural talent. And so you cannot see somebody do this and then say, oh, that must be Taijiquan, because, guys who've had great footwork and timing from the beginning of time, and they don't necessarily have to ever heard of Taijiquan. So this means that this particular attribute of Taijiquan is fairly invisible in terms of definitively saying you have seen somebody make use of this. Like I say, you'll see, oh, I saw him make use of this, but then I saw a lot of people make use of this in boxing matches on, in the past on TV or something, where I've seen people with good footwork and timing. So in other words, it is, like I say, indistinguishable from natural talent. This means, and of course, if you tell any fighter of any martial art, you say, well, you have a method here of producing footwork and timing, even when the person is not naturally, genius or anything, or doesn't have this very, very rare natural talent. which is always considered natural talent among almost any teachers of martial arts, of any kind. It's like, once you see the talent is there, like say maybe you can train it. The most common compliment I have gotten from other teachers is when my students go to them and the other teachers say, wow, your teacher hasn't taught you anything, but you're really a natural. I can tell that. So if you just give up this guy and come to me, I'll teach you all this stuff that you can do. And it's only because the student may realize that when he first came to me, he didn't have what looked like natural talent. But it is indistinguishable. So this becomes a difficulty in the sense that even a student has to have some sort of conceptualization of what he is actually trying to do. Now think about it. If you learn certain characteristic movements of other martial arts, and most martial arts, who have strong positions, and so like those positions are repeated faithfully in their fighting. And those positions can be recognized. And so you can say, well, he did this martial art, or he did that martial art. If you had a Taiji tournament, though, and you just said, well, these are all Taiji masters, let's say some sort of real bona fides masters, you'd have no way of showing whether they were doing Taiji or not, if the Taiji was good. Now, of course, most martial artists, regrettably, and frequently quite comically, they don't want their martial art to be invisible. They in fact, sort of would like to kind of radiate whatever it is they think is a little bit signatory of the martial art that I do, which is, I say, a affectation of a proper condition, perhaps, or a desired condition. Right? And usually it's a mistake, because I think all martial arts actually are better invisible. And I'm sure that the teachers of most of them would agree that affectations are not a good way to go. But still, it's something that you sort of see. And if there is nothing to grab a hold to in terms of affectations, then you sort of go to the next best thing, which is the personality of your teacher. And you sort of assume, well, that's Taijiquan. In other words, your problem is, what is Taijiquan? What am I actually learning how to do? If you copy the signature behavior and movements and somatic condition that you associate with other martial arts, regardless of how improperly it may be associated with them, if you do that, people will recognize what you're doing. So there's, in this case, with Taijiquan, let's just say the only real somatic condition that people associate with it is relaxation. So it's, quite common to see people who are studying Taijiquan really get into, how really they are relaxed, and when their movements, everything is just like incredibly relaxed. And it's an affectation. And actually it produces, with the technical, what it produces is stagnancy. In other words, anything that produces smooth and fluid change, that reduces the smooth fluid change of all the parts of the body is stagnant, essentially. So if you just try to let all your muscles go limp, then they become just as stagnant as they are when you lie in bed. But this could be a mistaken concept about Taijiquan. So okay, we'll take that away from you. You can't even do that. So then you're left with, what do Taiji teachers do? That is to say, masters. What do they do? How do they kill people? What am I looking for? How do I recognize that somebody's doing Taijiquan? And now we run into a real terrible problem, and that is the misuse of the technique of discharge. I think most people now have the conception that what they will see, if they see true Taijiquan being used in a victorious, Taijiquan triumphs over something else manner, they will see someone be discharged. If you don't have any image of that, just imagine somebody just suddenly being thrown through the air in a kind of frozen position and landing a few feet away, or, you know. I mean, this is unfortunate because the technique of discharge is not actually a weapon in that sense. And I don't want to go into an elaborate explanation of why that is true. But let's just say that it has been the impression that that is what you're trying to do has been fostered and, you know, nourished by the misuse of the Taijiquan exercise. The Taijiquan exercise is a fixed step exercise. And so Taiji people who do Taiji long for something that they can kind of get a hold of and say, give me something that I'm actually trying to do instead of all these weird instructions about my posture and everything. I want to do something. And so, you know, in any martial art, when you want to do something, what you want to do is always connected with some kind of conception of, you know, how you win fights, no matter how abstract it might be. So, you know, Taiji comes up with this thing where we have this fixed step exercise. But the fixed step exercise was not designed as a fixed step exercise because that was a good test of whether people could, you know, discharge each other. This is a complete misuse of the exercise. And the real problem is that the proper use of the exercise promotes actual stepping. In other words, the reason that Taiji is so hard to recognize, as I say, is because it's one of the goals that it satisfies when it's done correctly is great footwork. And yet the conception of the Taiji master in most people's minds, including the people who are studying Taiji, is the guy who can not be forced to take a single step. So if you can't force him to take a step, then why does he care about whether the step's good or bad, or, you know, how to do it? I mean, it doesn't make any difference if you're not going to ever make him do it. And so Taiji kind of gives this false impression. And I'm afraid when you connect this false impression with the fact that, as I say, there is no seeable, discernible, actual, real impression. Like I say, if you do karate, however badly, you might lose completely and be, you know, terrible at it. But people might say afterwards, oh, you know, he did karate. They killed him, but he did karate because they can recognize the karate. You'll never recognize good Taijiquan, and the better it is, the less you'll recognize it because it operates on such a fundamental level. Now, the other fundamental level that it operates on is producing a natural weapon. And that natural weapon is broken jing. And the whole technique of Taijiquan promotes, at the same time, great footwork and broken jing. But if you see somebody in a fight using broken jing, which in the West is sort of described as like punches that are like snapping or like, you know, stinging punches, right? The kind that Muhammad Ali was revered for using. This is jing. If you see somebody do that, you don't say, oh, that must be a guy who does Taijiquan. No, there are all kinds of people who study jing. He could be doing any kind of martial art. He could be doing no martial art. It could be just a natural. It's just a kind of natural thing some people have. They're just very elastic, and that's the way they fight. It's kind of rare. But at any rate, you cannot use that as a way to identify Taijiquan. So like I say, there's nothing what most people are looking for when they do their martial art, you know, they want to be great at it, of course, but they have a sort of provisional goal. They know sort of what they want to look like and what they want to be trying to do. And the combination of, like I say, the natural invisibility of both of those things, because what you're trying to do is really determined by what the other person does. It's a very listening thing. And your whole everything you do is fashioned from the other person's movements, not from your recognition of their attacks, like he's doing this or that. Not even from the simple idea that, oh, he's punching me with his right. Just before, you know, as he moves his whole body, the second he moves anything, you have something to respond to. And that's the level at which Taiji works. But again, that's indistinguishable from natural talent. So, like I say, this invisibility of everything about what Taiji does is what inspires me to say, look, think of it as a method of martial training, not as a martial art, in the sense that if it's a martial, you'll expect to see something that is definite and identifiable visually, or like I say, you'll expect to at least see a result. You know, somebody like slammed on the ground or thrown into the air, just, you know, something happened to them. But you don't know what to expect with Taiji. It is completely fashioned in the moment from what the other person does, but that doesn't mean that you're making it up as you go along. That means that you are operating on the level of some very fundamental skills that any boxer of any style, anywhere, would revere and say, oh, yeah, that's a real martial art. But where is it?